G'day folks, my name is Rob. Welcome back to another F1 Fantasy video. Today I'm going through my how to play guide for F1 Fantasy in 2024. So if you're a new or inexperienced fantasy strategist, this is the video for you. For all of you watching, drop a like on the video and please subscribe to the channel. It means a great deal for me heading into the 2024 F1 season. So first things I want to cover off in this video is team management. The most basic form of F1 fantasy boils down to us having to choose 5 drivers and 2 constructors at a $100 million team budget. Prices are uniquely assigned to drivers and constructors at the start of the season, and those prices will increase and decrease race to race based on how the driver or constructor or fantasy asset, as I like to describe them, performs. In terms of how much they change by, there's been no clear communication from F1. But typically we see increases between 0.1 and 0.5 million. We may oftentimes see those cheaper assets go up by $1 or $1.5 million. And we saw that a lot more in 2023 with Aston Martin and McLaren. They were quite priced low, and realistically, that's not going to happen a lot. But for those more affordable assets that have those consistently blockbuster fantasy weekends, we will see their prices increase by a larger amount than those more premium priced assets like Max Verstappen and Red Bull. In terms of when these price changes occur, they only change at the end of the race week while our teams are locked. Our teams are locked between the qualifying start time and when essentially prices and scores have been calculated and finalized on the Sunday evening. You'll be able to make those transfers once those new prices are locked in, and these prices are fixed until the next qualifying deadline. So there's no need to make trades between, say, the Monday and the Thursday, Monday and the Friday. Wait until the end of free practice if you can. Wait until we have as much information available to inform your decision making and guide those transfer plans heading into each race week. Now, on the topic of transfers, until the first race of the season, we get to make unlimited transfers. If you want to tinker with your driver and your constructor lineup, you can make as many as you want. Typically, we get 2 free transfers a week with the option to roll 1 unused transfer into a following week. So for example, if in week 2 you only want to use 1 transfer, you want to take out Max Verstappen, you want to put in Lewis Hamilton, you can roll the other transfer you don't use into week 3. The only thing I will say is that you can't stack transfers. You can't have, up to 5 or 6 or 7 transfers a week. We will usually get 2, and if you have 1 spare that you don't use, it'll roll into week 3. Kind of like a mini wildcard. However, if you do want to make more transfers, not free transfers, I'll call them, then you can take a minus 10 point penalty to make any other transfers above and beyond the free ones you have available. I wouldn't typically recommend it. That's kind of when we start entering the territory for using a wild card. And there are cases to be made to take a minus 10 point penalty, but when you're thinking about minus 20s or minus 30s, then I wouldn't say that's probably smart fantasy play, and that's perhaps when the wild card comes into play. We will cover the wildcard and chips later in the video, but the wildcard is certainly one of the more powerful chips, and it does enable you to make wholesale changes to your team in one fell swoop, free of charge, perhaps. In terms of scoring, drivers and constructors score points based on how they perform in the week, the race week. Drivers and constructors both get points for quali and race results, for overtakes, for positions gained, and the fastest lap. One thing, though, to think about is that there are points also assigned uniquely to drivers and constructors. So drivers can score driver of the day points, and those points will not go to the constructor. And by the same token, constructors can score points for fastest pit stops and qualifying teamwork. So for instance, if both drivers make it into Q3, then the constructor gets bonus points for that as a result. And then there are also ways we can lose points or have our team score go down. The more common examples are losing position. So let's say you start P12 and you finish P17 on the Sunday, then you lose minus 5 points. But you also have points deducted for DNF. So if you're taken out before the race has reached 90% of the race distance, then you have a minus 20 point assigned to that driver or constructor. In addition to that, disqualifications also attracts a minus 25 point penalty. Lewis and Charles, who are both disqualified at Circuit of the Americas in 2023, had that minus 25 retrospectively applied to their points total before teams unlocked on the Sunday night. As I mentioned before as well, you get a minus 10 point penalty for every extra transfer you make above the free transfers you have available to you that weekend. And then chips is probably the most exciting thing to talk about for me. They are essentially power-ups to your team. And much like F1, where teams take upgrades, you can consider chips as almost an upgrade to your fantasy team for that weekend. Each chip will be unique and be used in certain situations. But once, and I'll just say this, and please keep this in mind because people do make this mistake every season. Once you've locked in or chosen to activate that chip for that race weekend, you can't unlock it. The decision is deemed final and it cannot be cancelled. So make sure you put a lot of thought into the chip you want to use that weekend, because once you've activated it, there's no way to remove it or cancel it. The DRS boost is our weekly chip. It's not a chip in the sense that it powers up our team for a unique scoring capability, but it is the 2x point multiplier assigned to a driver of our choice every single race week. I would recommend Max Verstappen for that, purely because he will typically be the highest scoring driver every single race week. He was the highest scoring driver in 15 of the 22 race weeks in 2023. So if that's not a reason to use it on Max and not a reason to get Max in your team, I'm not really sure what is. But also, if you're someone that doesn't want to have Max in their fantasy team, and that's entirely up to you if you choose not to, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, even Sergio Perez are all great options too. They're always going to be in the mix for a podium, so I think naturally that makes them also great alternatives if you chose not to go with Max. Now, I'm going to have a separate chip strategy video and the best times to use each of those chips, but realistically, there are 6 we have available to us throughout the season. Now, some are more powerful than others, and I will say that there are some that I think are very good and very useful and will score you a lot of points. And there are others, on the other hand, that I don't think are necessarily going to be quite as handy, and as I mentioned, are unique to certain situations. The extra DRS boost, in my opinion, is the most powerful chip in the game. Like the normal DRS boost that has a 2x point multiplier, the extra DRS boost is a 3x point multiplier. So you can select any driver in your team to use that. But you can also assign the 2x point multiplier to another driver. You can't stack it and get 5 times. You can put the 3 times on Max and the 2 times on Lando Norris, for instance. So that's an extremely powerful chip. I'd use that at sprint race weekends where the most points are on offer. Limitless is another powerful chip, and that allows you, it's like Wildcard. You play this chip and you have unlimited budget and unlimited transfers. So you could get Max, Lewis, Charles, Lando Norris, George Russell, whatever you want, Red Bull constructor, Ferrari constructor. You can only use that for one weekend, and then at the end of the weekend, the chip obviously cancels, and your team reverts to the team you had at the weekend prior to the Limitless chip being activated. You don't get the price increases for those drivers on the Limitless chip. You get the price increases and decreases for the team that you had before the Limitless chip was activated. For Wildcard, it allows you to make unlimited transfers to your team. Stay within the cost cap, of course, but it remains active until the next team lock deadline. Once that next team lock deadline occurs, you have the standard transfers to use every single race week. This chip is not available in the first week, obviously, because we have unlimited chips to use up until that point. Autopilot, I thought they might have changed or removed this season, but not to worry. It will change to your highest scoring driver this weekend. So if your DRS boost is on Max, but let's say you have Lando Norris and he scores more than Max, then your DRS boost will automatically assign to Lando Norris. No negative. We've seen a slight tweak to how that is used this season. But use that chip if any of your team members will score negative points that weekend. It's quite well used at street circuits where DNF rates are quite high, and it is applied per scoring category. So instead of if your driver scored in 2023 minus points for the weekend, if your driver had minus points for positions lost or it had a DNF, it would just reset that scoring category back to 0. But if you've made overtakes and then had a DNF, you'll still get the points for the overtake. And then the last chip is Final Fix. Now that's an interesting one. Very hard time to plan for that one, but you can use that chip and make a single change to your team between qualifying and the start of the Grand Prix without a penalty assigned to it. Even if you've used all of your free transfers, you'll keep the points earned by the driver in qualifying and then get the points for the new driver you select in the Grand Prix. One thing just to think about though is that you cannot change the DRS boost allocation when playing your final fix. So if the driver you remove has the DRS boost applied, then the incoming driver will receive the 2x score for the next session, and your original team will be restored in the following race week once the final fix chip ends for that race week. So that's pretty much it in terms of chips, point scoring, and team management. I know it's a very basic video, but I did want to share something given a lot of you had asked on Twitter, on YouTube, even a few friends texted me in desperation asking for a how-to guide. So I thought I'd pull something together. Hopefully it covers all of the main points in the game, but be sure to drop any comments below if you've got any further questions as to how to play the game. But I'll leave that one there, guys. I've got a few more videos in the hopper in the lead up to Bahrain, but I appreciate you dropping by, and I'll see you all very soon.